And what about sex education in very young children's classes? It seems, moreover, that it is increasingly younger. From kindergarten, 3-5 years old, WHO standards recommend starting before the age of 4, and they suggest addressing the topic of early childhood masturbation, pleasure, and the satisfaction related to touching one's own body. Here I am quoting WHO standards, or also the right to explore sexual identities.
So I have an extremely radical position, which is that I believe that
Education has no place in school, period. At school, it's about instruction.
including civic instruction to remind children of the rules of life in society. And you don't humiliate, you don't mock someone based on their skin color, their height, their weight, their gender, their religion, of course, or their sexual orientation, of course. Civic instruction, education, it's at home. That's it. So already there's a problem. When you call a subject education, there's a problem. When you call a ministry national education, there's a problem. It's instruction, it's knowledge. Education is something more global that pertains to the family sphere, whether it pleases our ideologues who wish to transform man and the West or not. Increasing it, that is in reality, diminishing it in its subjectivity has no place. And actually in France there is a law from 2001 that has been completely misused. The idea was to combat addictions to porn, sexual abuse and harassment based on sexual orientation or sex changes. Once again, you teach biology on one hand, civic education on the other. You solve the problem. You shouldn't have to put it into the mind of an 8-year-old child that they can ask their parents to become a boy when they are a girl, and vice versa. You create confusion, because you are talking about something intimate in a public space. School is a public space, so there is no need to talk about intimacy to begin with. It makes them uncomfortable. Then it bypasses parental authority, because parents know their children, and according to the sensitivity of the child, there are children who will ask questions sooner or later. In adolescence, it also depends on the timing of puberty. There are girls who develop at 10 years old, and there are those who are still not developed at 14 or 15, so questions will also arise with physical development. And we know that the growth of a child is so variable from one child to another that we cannot standardize an age group like that by school level. So there you go then. When we truly understand the child's development, the stages of the child's emotional development, we can clearly see that it goes against all scientific knowledge. In fact, a child is not a being onto whom we can project our adult sexuality. Less quantitatively, it's rather different qualitatively, a child and an adult. We project our genital sexuality. The child is in the realm of sensory experience, exploring their body. Of course, a little boy in the bath can have an erection at 3 years old because the stimulation of the water causes his sex to change. But he will ask a question, he will say what is happening, and it's the role of the mom or the nanny or the dad or the big brother to say, well, it's normal, you are stimulated, but don't worry, your willy will return to normal. It's not at school. Talking to 4-year-olds about pleasure, enjoyment, masturbation, what kind of madness is this? We are violating children. And to do what Ferenczi called the confusion of tongues, which for me is a sexual abuse, it is on this confusion of tongues that all situations of control and incest rely. We are confusing adult language, which is the language of sexuality, with the child's language, which is the language of attachment and tenderness. The child needs bonds of attachment, needs to trust, needs tenderness. But he is not yet genitalized. He has not reached maturity. So to talk to him about sex change, pleasure, ejaculation, for a child who does not even have the physical means to understand what this experience is, it is just abominably violent. And it is no surprise that cases of children sexually assaulting other children in school bathrooms increase once these programs, as they are designed, are implemented. Today, as they are proposed today, by the way, the law was so distorted that we were supposed to fight against porn, addictions, etc. There is not a word in these programs about what addiction is. On the other hand, on sites funded by public money, therefore taxpayer money, where they are neither informed nor consulted, well, 11-year-old children can have access to practices they would have had plenty of time to discover by themselves with the person of their choice when the time would have been right for them to do so.
How do you allow a child to identify sexually inappropriate behavior from an adult, etc., if it is not discussed when they are young? In the case where they have an abusive family,
In fact,
or where things aren't all rosy, where they don't have access to asking questions to an adult, etc.
it is not by talking to the child about oral sex and other sexual practices that you will protect them from abuse. You will already be abusing them, meaning you will overwhelm them with something that they are not mature enough to comprehend. And so as they have heard about it, they even risk, when an adult wants to practice it with him, to say, oh, well, yes, I know, or well, let me try, or well, it's new. Oh, but I was told it was for pleasure, because sometimes the content is for pleasure. One can lick the boy's testicles. How does hearing that at school protect this little girl?
That's in the
On the other
texts.
hand, we receive testimonies from parents telling us, my daughter had this in class, the school nurse or the person giving the sex education class, because we don't know that it's not the teachers who are well trained specifically on how to prevent abuse. It requires training by a psychologist. In fact, it's often activists from associations.
That are ideological.
And the parents are not aware that an activist from the association is going to enter the school, even though they are ideologically oriented. But they have the right to think what they want, but they should not replace that with a school program. So if you want to protect your child from abuse, it is simple. Words must be spoken as soon as possible. I did it as soon as my children were in the bath, and we talked when they were 1 year old, 1.5 years old. I started explaining to them, this is your body. Your body belongs to you. No one has the right to touch your body. Even the doctor must ask you. There. So when we went to the pediatrician, I was always next to them. I was the one who undressed my child, who explained the doctor's actions to them, for example. And you tell your child no one has a right to touch you without your permission. And anyway, an adult does not have to touch you, except if it is for a medical act, but with the permission of daddy and mommy. And you do not have to if when a child of a certain age touches your chest, etc. There is a moment when it is no longer a baby at the breast. You have to tell them, no, you cannot touch my chest like this. Do you understand, you ask? And when you ask the child, can I give you a hug? Well, you teach the child respect for their body. And so you naturally teach them what consent is, and also respect for the other person's body. No, you don't pull my clothes, you don't touch my bottom when passing behind me, and you teach them little by little. And in fact, they learn it naturally. There's no need to tell them about the Kama Sutra, actually. Respect for the body is something that happens, if only, by not forcing him when he's eating, by not insisting when he says he's not hungry anymore. You see, the respect for the child's perceptions is already a form of immunity against sexual abuse. So it is not a lesson where we show him positions that he is not even at an age to understand, telling him it will protect him from missteps, that it will protect him from perverse adults. We are ourselves a perverse adult when we do that.
Why do you think people promote this kind of content for younger audiences?
So for some, because they are completely unaware of the stages of a child's development and think they are doing the right thing, they believe it's progress. They think the main argument is, oh, well, would you prefer they discover that on porn sites? Well, it's better for the school to teach them. So that's it. Let's traumatize them before they traumatize themselves. So there is a part of ignorance, stupidity, of people who encroach on areas where they have no expertise. There are people who do political communication who have no understanding of pediatrics or emotional psychology and probably haven't taken care of their own children much. And then there are ideologues who think it's good and that we're going to create a new man and that it's a very good thing, and who themselves are certainly manipulated in part by lobbies, who know that behind gender transition, sex change, etc., there's a colossal amount of money to be made. I mean, the market for puberty blockers is a lucrative market, and again, it's totalitarianism, because it means that the bodies of our children is a commodity intended to make a profit. It's a form of totalitarianism.